All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight we have Greater Naples Officials Association along with Coach Kramer. It's going to be a little bit different tonight, so please bear with us. We're experimenting something new. But again, thank you for being here tonight. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to put those in the chat box or the Q&A box down at the bottom. We'll go about an hour or so. We're kind of just gonna roll with the punches here, see how long this lasts. If there's good conversation, there's not gonna be a real PowerPoint to this. It's more of probably going to be like a role play. Mr. McPhee is going to ask Mr. Kramer some questions, get the feel for what coaches are doing and going through. So again, it's going to be a little bit different tonight, but we felt that seeing kind of what coaches are going through in today's age of the game and things like that would hopefully put a good perspective on what they're going through, and us as officials, you as officials, maybe be able to understand, kind of be able to see exactly what they're doing, what you're going through, and things like that. So again, thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. We also have Robbie Lindeman and Lisa Durant from the FHSA office that'll be here with us tonight. We'll answer any specific questions regarding FHSA materials at the end as well, if needed. So without further ado, Shannon, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for being here with us today. It's our pleasure to join you today. Really what we're here tonight to do is we're intending to present some discussion as to things that we don't necessarily talk about enough. Tonight's presentation is intended to allow us to step back a little bit from the rules and mechanics that are so important to being a good football official, but looking at an aspect of officiating that is oftentimes overlooked, and that's the coach-official relationship. As was introduced, I'm Shannon McPhee. I'm a circuit court judge here in Collier County who handles all of our juvenile dependency, delinquency, children in need of services type case. I'm a juvenile court judge here in Collier County. And prior to that, I was a criminal defense lawyer, and prior to that, a prosecutor for nearly 30 years. Coach Kramer, I came to know in both my position as an official, but also as in my position as a criminal defense lawyer, when shortly after he came to town, one of his least players on his JV football team got into some trouble, and I needed someone to come speak on his behalf. I called Coach Kramer, and he was there, even though this kid would never help him on a football field. He was there to support the kid and to support the boy's family. And it told me an awful lot about who Bill Kramer is. Coach Kramer coached it in Miami at American High School for 11 years. And then he came over here to Collier County and coached at Naples High School for 22 years, where I know he won at least 2 state championships. And he's now a member of the FHSA Hall of Fame. Coach Kramer has always been a coach that, for those of you that are officials at the varsity level, you always have that 1 or 2 schools where you know when you go, you better be ready, because you know they're going to be. And he and his coaching staff were always that program. So I want to thank Coach Kramer for joining us tonight to share some of his thoughts on this topic following his Hall of Fame career. I want to also challenge all of us tonight to sit back, eat dinner if you want to eat dinner, do what you're going to do, but sit back and actually really listen tonight to what Coach has to say. And I'm challenging us all to sit back, because Coach Kramer and I talked yesterday, and I found myself immediately when he's saying something saying, yeah, but I would say this back as an official. We don't need that tonight. What I'd like to challenge everybody to do is sit back, put yourself in the position of, and don't prepare your response to why Coach is wrong in your mind as to how you would respond as an official. I think much of our angst that we face when we're on the field with coaches could be alleviated if we just approach this coach-official interaction with this perspective of taking a walk in the coach's shoes. That's why we entitled this that. so that we can sit back and say, all right, what has this coach been up against? And what are we going to do to try to lessen the temperature in the room or on the field? On the rules and procedures, we always have the rule book and the mechanics manual to fall back on to try to make that right decision. With personalities, with coaches, we have to rely upon our own personality to help us through those times. And we all know those officials on our crews who we recognize they don't have that ability to de-escalate circumstances. And what I'd like to try to do tonight with Coach Kramer by asking him about his career and what it takes to be a coach and share the perspectives from a coaching perspective. Perhaps we can be a little bit more understanding of what they're doing so we can better understand our roles. Okay, so we have Rob. Rob, do you have anything that you'd like to add before I jump into asking Coach Kramer some questions? You're on mute. All right, Rob's on mute, going to remain on mute. All right, Coach Kramer, the first thing I'd like to talk to you about tonight is, we as officials spend really from the beginning of July through getting ready for the football season with preseason meetings. We then have in-season meetings. We have trainings, and then we go into our season where we spend our Thursday, Friday, Saturdays officiating football. And we do our game, we do our pregame, we do the game, we go home. Can you talk to us a bit about what a typical high school program, or your program in particular, how many hours you spent in a week as you prepare for our football season?
Sure, thanks, Shannon. First, it's an honor to be here. I don't know who's out there, but I have great respect for officials, always have. One of my high school roommates, actually, I'm in North Carolina right now, and I'm heading to see him. He's speaking at a conference. He out of college, he became an official, and he taught me a lot, and he motivated me I would go to officials meetings. I wanted to know the mechanics. I wanted to know beyond the rules. I wanted to understand application as a very young coach. When I was an assistant coach, and then I maintained that posture throughout. I'll be the first to admit that a lot of my cohorts, my colleagues, do not know the rules. I can see them doing this, gesturing that on occasion, whatever, just things like that. It just makes me sad. We can talk more about that later. Shannon specifically asked me about our schedule. I'll give you the perfect week in season. I used to have to sit down as we hired coaches, and I had a big staff. 19 assistant coaches, because we had freshman JV varsity. I had a training staff, video staff, and academic support. And I think this job is much more difficult without a big staff. Now, I'm not saying it's easy with a big staff, because you have to manage. I got to look the wives in the eyes when they haven't seen their husband. By October, it's rough. And especially, I don't want to hear who needs to see the dentist. We're not having that conversation. You schedule that however you have to schedule it. You have your obligation here, you're going to meet it. So having said that, a typical Monday, we'll start with a Monday. Everybody's in school by 6:30 in the morning. You just have to be. That's late for most of us. 7:05 kicks off the school day, and we would have breakfast for our guys. In my early career, I wrote a grant. Each year we had federal grants where we could feed our guys. And then maybe 15 years ago, 12 years ago, that became ubiquitous. Everybody got free food for breakfast. We would wheel it down to the weight room. All of our freshmen would have to check in. All of them would have a health fitness class the first period of the day. I'd make sure everybody had a good breakfast, was in the school on time. We're teachers, we're counselors, we're in the building. And my staff of 19 coaches, 15 in the building, maybe 4 not in the building. The Riddell rep coached with me. My kicking coach was a local attorney who could fit into the schedule, and a couple other guys that would coach. One guy in freshman, one guy in JV who were not teachers. If it were possible, I would have had 19 that were. Having said that, what I'm telling you is typical of football coaches. So you teach your school day. By lunchtime, Mondays, everybody has to meet. You got to meet with your position groups because we're giving them the game plan. Here's what you're going to see later this afternoon. Our last period of the day was our weight training class for the JV and varsity kids. Every coach I would attempt to get every coach that planning period. So what they would use normally for teacher planning, they would be using for football during the football season. We'd get them in the weight room. Another thing I did was I treated every day like an away game for our athletic trainer, where he or she would set up down in our strength facility, bring all the diagnostic tools, treatment tools, whatever. And then we would call guys one at a time. I didn't want anybody wasting time walking to the trainer or waiting in line for the trainer or any of that. I don't even want them using the restroom. They'd be like, Coach, can I use the restroom? Yeah, you can use the restroom, but you're going to give me 100 yards of scalded dogs first. You still got to go? And they never had to go. I don't understand that, but it just went away. So that was interesting. At the conclusion of that, the school day ended at 2:05. We would keep our guys till 2:15. And so the schoolyard would clear out, the parking lot's cleared out. I don't want any distractions, those girls hanging around, all that. If I saw them I'd shoo them off. At 2:15, we began on Mondays, our special teams meetings. We've already done cut-ups for each special team from all the film we could get of our opponent and our last week. Actually, before that, we're doing Player of the Week awards. Then we get into special teams cut-ups. And then I'll give a general overview of what the schedule looks like for the week. If we're away, kind of what time we're leaving and about parents' tickets and just all that stuff, pregame meal and all that. If we're home, we kept the same home schedule every week. We're gonna, at 2:55, that will be done. And then we're gonna divide into offense, defense, and scouting report time. Scouting report matches the cut-ups, the video cut-ups that we used to do manually back in the day. And now it's all done via huddle, so that as you go through a scouting report, the plays will match the scouting report. That takes some doing. You're video editing all weekend. Practice is going to be done about 5:30 to 5:45 on a Monday. I try to be done by 5:30 today, but most Mondays just going to 5:45. The other thing that Monday is progress report reckoning day. And so at the end of practice, I'm calling guys to me that have anything less than a C that week, the previous week, not cumulative. Like anything less than a C the previous week, or if you're missing an assignment, I got to hurt you. We call it OPP, stands for opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to get right. And so on Monday, I tell them what the issues are. They have to bring me a note from the teacher Tuesday, they're going to be uncomfortable. If they know they've just screwed up and they're not going to be any note coming, then Monday they can just take care of it and get it over with. So practice ends about 5:45. At 6:15, the defense is meeting. They're watching film and eating together. The entire defensive staff with all of the players. Parents have brought that food in. The offensive guys by position are going to the offensive coaches' houses by position. Originally, we went to every coach's house, and the notion there was we wanted to see them show them what an intact family looked like during the stress of a season, throughout a season. We wanted them to get a good meal in them. We just wanted to do life, no football, just life. Unfortunately, much of my defensive staff couldn't afford to live near Naples, city Naples, and had to live out in the county, and it was too far for players to drive. And so we had to wind up meeting everybody at the school for that. That's going to be done by about 8. In my house, I was cleaning up from 8 to 8:30 while my girls were taking baths. My daughters, I've got 4 little girls. 8:30 was their bedtime. 8:45, I'm watching film from practice. I'm cleaning up our practice scripts. I'm making comments, notes, seeing what we're eliminating for Friday night. Tuesday and Wednesday are about the same schedule. They look very similar to what I just told you. In the building at 6:30, meetings at lunch with your position players. By the way, all of our coaches were required to have their practice grades. Every kid gets a grade sheet. Every play that happened during practice, every single segment is videotaped, at least 2 views. And they're going to have their comment sheets. I have to have them by lunchtime. So if I don't care what time they get up or what time they go to bed. We used to tell them sleep when you're dead. That's going to be to me by lunch so that I can look at it. And I can make any comments or look for trends. I also need to know who's earning the position. The parent that's angry about them not playing is going to come see me. And it's always the practice grades that determine who plays. So Tuesday and Wednesday were very similar. Again, practice done at 5:45, 5:35, 5:45. And then that gave us a little more home time. Now that's assuming we don't have any obligations. In the school system, they rarely would have a back to school night, a parent meeting, any of that stuff on a Monday or a Friday. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is when those things happen. We could have our officials meetings. We could have our county coaches meetings. We could have our FACA meetings. There's a lot of stuff going on. And by the way, this is also assuming I don't get a phone call from a defense attorney about a JV kid who is never going to play, which that's real life. Or somebody's mom got arrested, or somebody's lights got turned off. Coach, we don't have any food. The power just got turned off. All that stuff's going to happen. So this is a perfect week where we're not dealing with that. On Wednesdays also, we don't have meetings on Wednesdays. That was our FCA meetings. Thursday, everybody has a lunch meeting except for our leadership committee, where they're meeting with me. We're having lunch. We're doing life. I'm very specific and intentional about how I develop leaders in the team. 6 players will represent the rest of the team. They're going to be mentoring their guys. We're going to talk about their mentor group, specific players in the locker room, what's going on the weekends. Anything that may affect our team, we're going to talk about it. We're also going to write at least once a month. I'll force that, and perhaps more than that, we're writing former players to encourage them, the guys that are in college playing football. That's Thursdays. Thursdays also walkthrough. So we're going to get our practice much earlier. We're going to, instead of lifting on Thursdays, half the team, the offense on Thursday, is going to be doing intensive stretching. It's mostly, it's yoga, basically. It's lower back stuff. It's very medicinal stretching. The defense is going to be with me. They got to bring me 10 SAT words that they've memorized. I'm going to go through those with them. As I'm doing that, I'm checking their planners to make sure all their assignments are in order. I've already shown them in preseason how to set up a planner. I told them how to use a timekeeping system, how to organize their time, how to organize their study. I'm checking all that off. On Friday, we reversed those roles on game day. So the defense is now with me in intensive stretching, and offense is with me with the grades. So we're going to go out for walkthrough. First film after at 2:15 again. Film's done at 2:45. Then we're walking through till 3:45, 4 o'clock. Freshmen play at 5. So coaches get an hour break, maybe. Most of them are going to start working on the opponent film at that point. And for the head coach, I'm making my calls to college coaches. Thursdays afternoons are a great time to do that. Any of our guys we want to get looked at being recruited or whatever, and that's when I'm sending out all the transcripts, that sort of thing. 5 o'clock to freshman play, 7 o'clock to JV play. Thursdays are also my touchdown club meetings at 6. So I'm going to miss most of the freshman game and some of the JV game. That's just how it is. After touchdown club, the families, that's the time for your families to come. For the varsity coaches, they can hang out, watch the JV game, bring the kids with the wives, and we get to see our families a little bit. Thursday night, we start working on opponent. So instead of watching practice video or who we're playing this Friday, the next night, we're working on the following Friday's opponent with whatever video we have. Getting it in ODK, offense, defense, special teams, and starting a game plan. On Friday, after school, we hold them to 2:15 again, and then they're going to go to a quiet room, which is a study room, or a movie room. They have one of 2 choices. No one leaves the building. Their attendance is taken, and coaches are manning the fort. For 30 whatever years, my wife came and fixed a pregame meal. She prepare it for 100 folks every week with whatever mom she can get to help. I'm going to take a half-hour nap on Friday from 3:15 to 3:45. And if I can't sleep, I just lay there and try to just collect myself because I am tired. After pregame meal, we have FCA chapel. Then we get into our pregame meetings and go over our call sheets last time and our wristbands with the offense, all that. And then we kick off. After the game's over, we got to take care of equipment, be sure it's dried because we're in Florida. Everything has to get dried, especially electronics, and put away very neatly for Monday's practice. All the uniforms have to be de-stained, then washed, then folded, then put away. So if we get out of there at midnight, that's a good home game. And if you're away, it depends how far we had to drive. Saturday morning, everybody is in by 7. I get there, I grab food at 6:30. So everybody, no excuses about it, I didn't have food. And I bring the food in for breakfast. We start our coaches meeting, first meeting at 7 a.m. and we're grading the previous night's video. The kids are in at 9 for treatment with the trainer, all the banged up. Oh, I forgot about that. So every practice, the head coach, I'm meeting with my trainer to see what the banged up guys are, what our health situation is and how that affects the game plan. And then Friday nights, I'm meeting with the doctor and the trainer after the game. That's always very, very important. And also, who knows if you have to go to the hospital, you have an upset mom, yeah, whatever. Like that can turn into a whole life of its own, that stuff. Saturday, everybody's there by 10 for video. Everybody gets their game grade sheets. We're going to be done with that video by 11:45. At 11:45, I take the whole team out for an aerobic wash. We're going to try to get the lactic acid out of them a little bit. Also, back years ago, I started doing this. I got it from Don Shula when I was in Miami. He would do it so he could smell alcohol on his players or know if somebody smelled like they were smoking dope or something. So I bring them all up in the huddle afterwards. We get them real close. I shake hands with every player. Just want to say, hey, man, love you. Let's have a great weekend, get some rest, take care of your schoolwork. And in that conversation, I'll call it out immediately if there's anybody that smells, hey, man, what do you smell like right now? So then that takes on a life of its own sometimes. We're done with that by 12:15. By then, the food is in. I sent coaches. We would always cater lunch wherever we're getting it from. I've sent some coaches to get it. They've brought it back. By the way, the young guys that aren't with varsity position players during all of this time, they are doing cut-ups. They are putting all the data points we need, which is everything, where every player lined up, every play of the previous games. If we have 10 games, then I have 10 games of where every player lined up, any motion, any formation adjustment on offense or defense, and exactly what they did during that. And we've got really smart guys. I've got a master's degree in computer science myself. I'm not saying I'm a smart guy. I got guys way smarter than me. And we would write the algorithms that we needed to find out the information we needed to find out where the weak links were. So that's going on from 7 till 1. 12:15 when all the coaches meet. And then I debrief the previous night. I'm going to talk mostly about the interactions I see between players and coaches, language that was used, interactions with officials, all of those types of things. It's not game plan stuff right there. At 1 o'clock, we start the game plan part. We're very specific. I'm going to give general ideas, things that I think need to happen, get whatever feedback I'm going to get, and then guys go to work. Offense would leave at 5. I would send them home at 5. Defense would stay as long as defense wants to stay. And for them, they're crazy people anyway. So they're staying till who knows how late. Sunday is church morning, and then everybody's back by 1. At 1 o'clock, finalizing game plans, offense, defense, special teams, and finalizing practice scripts. And our practices, every minute is scripted. We have to know what personnel groups. That's why the injury thing is so important. We could have a really important player missing, and we got to change our scripts. So at night, on a Tuesday night, everything changes because somebody gets hurt. So our practice scripts, every single play is scripted. We know what the offense is going to, offense versus defense and personnel. That's going to have to all get done on Sunday, all the scripts. In addition, the coordinators, and I did this myself. We have to have the scout cards made. So all the scout team guys who don't normally play those positions know where to line up. All that gets done by one group of coaches. And then my offensive coordinator is working on his specific offensive line stuff, which is detailed. And then I'm doing quarterback wristbands. It's probably the last thing I do on a Sunday night is making sure quarterback wristbands. And the quarterbacks get the game plan on the wristbands, hopefully by 10 p.m. on Sunday night. That was always the goal. And then Monday, we're back at it again. Again, that's a perfect week with no fires to put out, which I don't know if that ever existed, but that's just typical.
Well, Coach, I mean, it's frankly, it's overwhelming. I didn't realize I live in this town. I didn't realize you did this. And I just did quick math. And the quick math on that is on a perfect week, your coaching staff and yourself in particular were putting in 93 hours of work at football. And we take that out.
And teaching school. Now, I will say, when you're teaching during the day, you're going to have the phone, man. Like,
Sure.
if Nick Saban's assistant calls me, or Dabo Swinney's calling me, or whatever, I'm picking up the phone.
Well, and I'm including in that time frame the hours that you're actually spending in the school, but you're always
Right.
coach. So it's 93 hours that you are invested in a week into your football program or into your high school. And so I then sit here and say, okay, minimum, you're going to have those 10 games in a week. So you're talking then a couple of playoff games. You literally are talking about 1,000 hours, without exaggeration, 1,000 hours of thinking football or academics with your kids. And I think we as officials need to recognize that and take consideration of that. Now, look, Coach Kramer, you and I have had this discussion before. You're a little maybe over the top. That's why you're in the Hall of Fame. That's why you won the 2 state championships. The issue I would ask you is the normal coach that we see out there, the coach perhaps that's not putting in as much study time into the game. How many hours do you think they're typically working? And when you
I mean, in season, whoever it is, like, if in season, I don't know how you could do it it's got to be a 12-hour day anyway. I mean, that's minimum. That's 6:30 to 6:30. That's nobody. Everybody does more than that. I'll promise you. Everybody does more than 12 hours a day. One of the things we really worked hard at, which we were stealing time because our practices were so organized. We're going to go 2.5 max, like from stretch and flex till see you guys 2.5 max. And I'm telling you, most guys don't start that practice clock until the first period starts, and they go well beyond that. Because they're doing offense and defense. Like our kids only played one side of the ball. Practices were completely split. I mean,
so when I'm looking at this, Coach, when we're sitting here saying you're putting in that many hours in a week, frankly, it explains a lot why you and many other coaches might be so grumpy by Friday night, because frankly, you must be tired.
That's why you got to take a nap.
So now that helps me understand and put some things into perspective. So I appreciate that. The issue I would have, a follow-up question to this is, when you're asked about the official coach relationship, because that's really what, how do we make this game better? When you talk about that, do you have a few thoughts? I know we talked about 3 different things perhaps that come to mind for you with officials, and what makes for a really great official to help you as a coaching staff to really have a great ball game, regardless of who you're playing. What do you view from your years of experience? And obviously you've studied the game as much as you have. We're a part of the game, the officials are. What makes a great official in your mind?
First and foremost, a great one is a great communicator, and a bad one is a poor communicator. I mean, everybody's going to miss some plays, but I've said it many times, and I can remember Dan McDonald. I heard his feelings bad at a game because I thought he was ignoring me. And I can handle anything. Tell me whatever you want to tell me. But I would get so heated. It's really the only time I got heated, if I was being ignored. And if I ever raised my voice, other than that, I'm assuming you can't hear me. So I got to project. And I can remember, I don't know what the play was or anything. It wasn't even a big deal. But it's when you guys had first started with the earpieces, and he was listening to guys talk about whatever. And I think there was probably a lot more chatter when we first started with those, maybe. And so he's doing that and looking there, and I'm to his right, 15 yards, and he can't hear a thing I'm saying, I guess. And I was so frustrated, and I was fussing at him. And when he finally looks at me and sees me, and I said, I've just let him have it. Cannot believe you're ignoring me. I'm going off on him. And he didn't feel like he deserved that.
Well, is that why you took him as one of your coaches then, and took him off of our officiating crew?
Yeah.
So,
Yes, I made him an assistant coach.
what's your thoughts? I mean, communication is obviously what to you, obviously the ability to listen, but what makes a good communicator to you as an official? Because, obviously the circumstances of our games, make a difference, I'm sure, and the stakes make a difference. But what makes a good communicator for you, and who do you like to see on your sideline or as a white hat out there, or what do you get nervous about when you see certain guys come into your field?
Yeah, it's funny because all the guys I'm thinking of right now, and I have to not use any names, but there were guys that I can think of several guys. If we'd be away to Immokalee, if there are certain stadiums where the fans would get on you, and it changed that official's demeanor. They were stressed and it was obvious. So guys that can control their demeanor. Now we're going to assume everybody's attempting to communicate. And I don't even care if it's, I've had you and I've had both you guys tell me before, look, I don't know. We'll have to look at the film. We could have blown it. I'm okay with that. That is fantastic. It's an answer. It's something. When guys are not non-communicative, when they shut down, this is a problem. It's a problem for every coach. Another thing I think is hugely important and is obvious to everyone in the stadium is when the guy on my sideline is telling me, hey, coach, get back. And the guy on their sideline is letting him coach from the hash. So consistency is an issue. Good communicators and consistency within that crew is huge. And you and I talked about a local coach who's no longer coaching, who he used to coach from the hash. And I would tell you all this, treat coaches like 2-year-olds. I thought about this after you and I spoke last night. If we'll all just treat coaches like 2-year-olds, a bunch of us are anyway. And that means this, and I think of this because I've got an 18-month-old and a just turned 3-year-old grandsons that I've spent the last 2 weeks with. So the first time they fuss, I go sit them in a chair. Hey, when you're better, you can get yourself out of that. When you're ready to act right. Now, I'm not telling you going to throw a flag on the coach the very first time, but I will say this: it should be a sideline warning the very first time he steps beyond whatever he's allowed, beyond whatever both guys are allowed, and then the next time it's a flag. And if that happened week one, and if it happened every week, there would be no issues with that sort of thing. It just wouldn't be an issue. Everybody wants to win. Nobody wants to hurt their team. But there's just that inconsistency in application is huge. And likewise, if it is, hey, if the play's snap's not imminent, come out as far as you want, coach. As long as it is consistent and we know it in advance. And so I think part of that communication is letting us know that in advance. Or you and I talked about this last night. The good officials, like at halftime, I've had officials come. You would tell all the time, anything we're missing? Is there any problems you got with our crew right now? You always did that at halftime. I've had other officials on occasion say, hey, look, it's getting chippy out there. It's going to be a lot tighter half. I'm letting you know right now. We are not letting this get out of hand. I'm great with all of that. In fact, I've had an official get mad at me for something I said who tells me after the fact I should have thrown a flag. And I'm thinking, you should have thrown why didn't you throw the flag? Like, don't tell me you've been doing, or a kid, an athlete or a coach has been pissing them off for 3 quarters. In the 4th quarter, they throw the flag. He's been getting away with that for 3 quarters. What are we doing? Just apply consistency without passion or prejudice. It's fine.
Well, let me ask you, how much did you enjoy a few years back in the Coconut Bowl that I did when you called a timeout to challenge a rule, my interpretation or my application of a dead ball, unsportsmanlike in the end zone by the offense, and you're telling me that you get to take the choice on the kickoff, and I insisted that you were wrong. And how much enjoyment did you get when you got the text following the game and said, sorry, coach, I was wrong. You had me on that one.
None. And we didn't get fussy at all. Mm-hmm. You were communicating. You
communicating wrong, but I was communicating.
It doesn't matter. You were communicating. You weren't belligerent. Hey, Shannon, I had an official in a playoff game And we were getting unbalanced with our tight end on the backside in a 80 number, an eligible number, but he's in the tackle position. And we are low blocking from that position. He's inside the free block zone. And this guy keeps throwing flags on me. And I'm not good enough I want to run strong, but he's too small and we're going to get smoked. And I got to do this for us to have a chance. And so at halftime, I always keep a playbook with me, or a rule book and an application book, right? The mechanics book. And I made a copy of the page and I went up to him at halftime. I said, hey, listen, I don't want to offend you. I'm not trying to show you up. I'd like to shake your hand right now. I'm gonna hand you a rule and let you know why that's not that we're legal in what we're doing. And he said, okay, coach, I appreciate it. Yeah, doing this. You're not showing me up. He goes and he opens it and looks at it away from me. He comes back and says, coach, you're exactly right. We blew that. I think we got 4 of them in the first half. And I said, wow, good. So your umpire is good with that then, right? He goes, here's what I want to tell you, coach. That umpire is my dad, and he's not going to call it any different than he called it in the first half. It don't matter what I say.
Hey, coach, I have a question here that's popped through. It's kind of along obviously the coaching and the official relationship. How have you seen that that relationship has changed with the publication of official abuse not being tolerated, which we can kind of see resulting in good officials leaving the field and not coming back after maybe a couple bad experiences or things like that?
Yeah, I'm going to say something that the FHSAA can help on that I think was really important was when we used to have rules meetings and the coaches and the officials met together. And y'all would send somebody out to explain the new rules each year and how they would be applied. If the National Federation changed something, or if they didn't, but there's always a change. They change something every year. And if only at that time we got to see the officials outside of football as regular guys, and conversations would be had and questions would be asked, and we got to interact together. And I think that was really important. So for when a guy saw a guy down the line, and especially after a few years of coaching, you get in there a few years and you get to know guys a little bit and be like, okay, we are all in this together. And what I would always preach to my teams when I go to clinics, we can't have a game without the officials. We can't have a game without an opponent. We have to respect the officials and the opponents as much as we respect our teammates. But we don't have those conversations because we're never together to have the conversation. So if we could get back to rules clinics in person, and Zoom's great, but it's just not the same. You lose all the nuance. There's not the before or after. You can't really see the body language. It's hard to engage. It's way easier to be distracted, and we all know that. But I think that was really important because as much as the fans will get on the official, that official comes and does that game, and they get hammered or whatever, or that maybe the coach is hammered, which shouldn't happen. Throw the flag, man. We get crushed just as bad or worse from the fans, our own fans. Shannon, I wrote a book, and years ago, I sat some kids who broke some team rules, and in an effort to get at my wife, because they couldn't get at me as my wife's exiting, like she has to have a police escort, and my daughter get trampled literally from not our opponents. I mean, I've had death threats. I've had to have City of Naples police drive around my house for weeks because of the death threats and the poop on fire in my doorstep and the dead fish in the mailbox. And I mean, that's all real. So whatever stress the officials are feeling, we feel your pain. But we have to realize and find a format to say, hey, coach, we got to get us together in some form and say, we are in the same boat. And we are in a world of crazy right now where everyone's entitled. Everyone thinks they should have their say and that their say should give them their way. None of that is true, but it applies. The pressure of that is we feel it just the same as the officials. And once we can get the officials and the coaches realizing, hey, we're in the same boat, I think a lot of the fussing goes away.
Coach, one of the issues that I've always found, and even more so now after I see this schedule, it strikes me that you and perhaps many other coaches across the state really are attempting through your study of the game to control all the controllables, that you truly have your success because you are doing so. Well, at the beginning of a week, you might get the list of the officials you're going to have for that week, or you're going to know where you're going and you're traveling to. Obviously, when you're with local officials in local games, you know the personalities. What steps, if any, do you take when you see who you're going to have as an official? Does that change the way perhaps you game plan based upon the personality of the official or the person who's going to be on your sideline, or frankly, who's going to be on the other sideline that you may not have their ear throughout the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fact of the matter, whether it was conscious, subconscious. We would go into, if you're playing against Jim Sprague at Riverview and half the officials played for him, that's going to be a little rougher. It just is, you know. Or at Bradenton Manatee, I mean, coaches that are legends, people love them. You're playing against a coach who's dying of cancer. Shoot, I want to call penalties on us too. I mean,
but don't you think,
nature.
Coach, that people who came into you, I know I had a particular coach from the East Coast who thought that everybody here was beholden to you because you'd been here that long.
Yeah, man, Luther Campbell. Hey, don't listen to Luther Campbell. Uncle Luther, he's crazy. And he and I were boys until he should have beat us by 50. I'm sorry you didn't, Luke. I told him that. But here's what I'm saying. There's no doubt that some officials, they're going to throw more flags, and they're going to be less consistent, and they're going to be less communicative. You know that over time. So we would practice that. We would game plan for that, where every segment that we have, I try to have a winner and a loser. The loser is going to become uncomfortable. On occasion, I'd give the winner something. They'd have, you know, Powerades or freeze pops or something instead of it being punitive. Nonetheless, everybody's fighting their tail off. And so when certain officials were on the list, or we're going certain places, I would build in bad fouls into the scripts where outcome of play, let's say, would have had the offense win and they're all going to get a freeze pop, or well, now we got a hold, that's not a touchdown, ball goes back, and now instead of that they got to run extra after practice. So I would build that in preparation for to get us emotionally prepared as a team that we're going to get bad calls, and we have to just keep going. We got to win the next play.
All right, very good. Along those lines, Coach, we all know we go out there on a Friday night. We love the nights where we can take 7 out there because we think we do a much better job and much better coverage. You'll have a game where the majority of our games, we have 5. And of those 5, maybe 1 or 2 of them are very inexperienced. I know when we used to go to your field, every single pregame, we emphasized the onside kick because your teams were masters of it. Did you, as a coaching staff, study where the officials were going to be in coverage on kicks, and kicks being in one example, and actually take advantage of that because of you knowing where we were going to be and where we weren't going to be?
I will say that I know that a 5-man crew on kickoff cannot cover the field. That's, if you look at the mechanics, it's obvious. We got problems, man. Guys are in a bind, right? A conflict, we call it. The official's going to be in a conflict. You can't see everything you're supposed to see. Now, having said that, we didn't do anything illegal. Where you could actually, if coach wanted to, and kick off PAT field goal, if you're going to fake it, you can really put officials in a bad position to try to make a call, man. If it's a 5-man crew, whole low blocks. My guys would be. We were very good on special teams. We took tremendous pride in that. And there were many times where I show you film where we're getting low blocked, and I'm saying it's a 5-man crew, guys. They're not going to see that. They're just not going to see it. We have to draw their attention to it, and hopefully they see it next time. I'm not saying that coach was coaching that, but I'm saying that exists. And there are many coaches that are aware of conflicts that officials face with 5-man crews versus certain formations and certain, whether it's special teams, offense or defense, there are certain areas that are tough for 5-man crews.
One of the issues that I'm sure other officials share with me is a frustration that happens when we have a good staff, or maybe if it's a poor staff in comparison to what some others might be. And, you know, I think many of us have taken the position of, look, the head coach, let's talk to the head coach. We're going to really try to communicate. But it oftentimes is from the opening kickoff. All we hear is the chatter of the assistant coaches, who more than half the time have no concept of the high school rules that were there, and they immediately lose credibility for that sideline. What steps do you take with your assistants, and perhaps how do you mentor young coaches to talk about that issue of credibility and how quickly you can lose credibility when you're constantly asking for the hold, you're constantly asking for the blocks in the back or the illegal blocks or whatever the case may be, but it literally is every single play. How do you address that as a coach?
Yeah, I think that's part of the conversation. I addressed it by educating my guys, and nobody talks to officials but me. Now, I would find my 2 coordinators who had, they were bigger than life in our community and knew the officials knew them, and I'd see them talking to them. And I didn't fuss about that, although both of you probably know there's plenty of times when I would either say, Coach Dollar, it's enough, or Coach Horn, that's enough. Don't talk to the officials again. My staff was not talking to the officials. They were not supposed to. Now, I'm not saying guys didn't, but I'm saying that was the expectation, and I would have to deal with it after the game. I try my best never to get on a coach in front of the kids. So I think it's a conversation you should have with them. And I know I've heard it before, not necessarily to me, but I know that officials have told coaches, hey, the more you're fussing like that and your guys are wanting me to call something that doesn't exist, they just have that conversation. You lose credibility with me. When you're going to really want me to pay attention to something, it's the sky is falling. You're Chicken Little. It's not going to happen. You need to get your sideline under control and let me officiate the game. Now, some guys, Uncle Luke, may take great offense to that. But at least you can have the conversation, make an effort. Nobody's perfect, and there are coaches that are just wing nuts. There's no doubt. They lose their mind. Maybe they're about to lose their job. They are really tired and have no emotional control. And that's sad, because the problem is their kids are learning from them how to behave under stress. And all of the fans in that stadium, and we may have 7,000, 10,000, who knows how many, they can all see the behavior of the coaches. And it really reflects poorly on our game, on the night, on the sport, when they're behaving like that.
What do you think, Coach? And I know we're winding down here. We got about 11 minutes total left if we wanted to use it all. There are times where when I was as a sideline official, that a coach would say something, and perhaps I came back with what I perhaps thought might have been witty, or perhaps it wasn't. Maybe I was ticked off at the time. Did you have anything that we as officials would say to you that could make you go from 0 to 60 immediately, because it was the official pushed a button that they shouldn't go anywhere near with coaches?
I never did. I just hated being ignored. Just tell me you don't know. Tell me anything, but don't ignore me. Okay. And I know there are guys that when we'd be in coaches meetings, they say, you won't believe what the official said to me. And yes, that happened. I know that has happened. And I would say, what I think got anything to do with anything. What, okay. Coach your team. So again, I think we can preemptively, if we can get coaches and officials together in a rules meeting environment, that's the only, I can't think of another environment where it would work, where they can have some conversations. I think that would be helpful. And then in pregame, I think it's really imperative that the officials set the tone, set the standard. Here's what I'm not going to put up with this. Last week, you showed your rear. and that official let it happen. I saw the film, but that's not going to happen this week. And I would say that's really, really important for officials to watch their film. I mean, I know I don't want to make them work harder than or add more hours to their day or more work on their plate, but whatever we saw happen, we think happened in the game. If you watch the film, it's a 50-50 if you were right or not. That's for all of us. That's why we have to grade our practice film every night. Coaches think they saw that kid. Yeah, the safety came down 2 steps and then he gave it a 45 and it didn't happen at all. That's not what happened.
Well, and I know,
and
I know in our association, and I'm sure this is shared in many associations around the state, we've been very fortunate that our schools in Collier County have always sent game film that night or Saturday morning to Rob Mackett in our association, who then sends them out to the White Hats of that previous night's game. And we then break the film down from an official standpoint, positioning, various issues and actions that occurred, and we send it out to our crew. And then we use those on each of our weekly meetings. We take out plays from across the county as to try to train and get better. I can tell you, originally I was against it because I thought, you know, hey, this is going to embarrass guys and it's going to drive them out. I could not have been more wrong. The watching of film and being able to see how we do as officials is so critical. It's invaluable. So I would encourage any association that's not utilizing that through Huddle with their schools, we're really, really missing out because it's an incredible learning tool for all of us to utilize. So, Coach Kramer, did you have anything else that you would like? I'm looking here. Jeremy, did you see any other questions that you thought needed to be answered?
Yeah, I had one. It's kind of on it's speaking on the shortage of officials and kind of maybe how you or your staff would handle newer, younger officials who were still kind of learning the ropes. They're on a veteran crew, but they just didn't have that experience of maybe a Coach Kramer on the sideline wanting an answer, things like that. Are coaches willing to show more grace to individuals like that? Or is it, while you're getting paid like the rest of them, you need to do your job like those individuals on your crew? Kind of, how would you and your staff, or maybe if you have experience with other coaches, how do you guys, or how would you handle those?
Yeah, I would always try to set them at ease. As the years went on, I could tell guys would just be stressed being the newbies. And some of them was very stressful. I always appreciated it when the white hat would tell them, do not throw any flags. It better be totally obvious, or you better just echo mine. And it would be obvious to me if they were having those conversations.
Well, one of the things along that line, Coach, and you and I talked about this last night, and I think for officials, this is something we've seen how much time coaches are putting in. It does not take that much time to study the rule book. It does not take that much time to read readings and get ready to do the game. Because I can tell you from the experience that I have, whether it be here in court or whether it be as a practicing attorney or an official, rarely do we lose our cool when we know the rule, we know the mechanic, and we know we did it right. Where we might lose our cool and have a problem is when we're questioning ourselves because we haven't studied the rule, we haven't studied the mechanic. And I would encourage all of us to recognize that. Those sideline officials, coaches can be actually very funny when you really know the rule inside and out, because you know you're just so right. So when they're yelling, it's uncatchable, it's kind of funny because you know that coach has no idea what they're talking about, and you can disregard pretty much the rest of the evening. Coach, do you have anything else to add along those lines?
Just no, I think you're right. Know the rules, and you don't have to be perfect. Communicate, and you can even communicate that the I'm not perfect thing, you know, but just communicate. I would also, one other thought, and this was towards the end of my career, and I kind of stumbled across it officials would always tell me, hey, hope it's a good game. Hope it's a good game tonight. And it occurred to me maybe 10 years ago, I asked a couple of officials, hey, so what's a good game? And they said, a close game, man, goes right down to the end. And I have to tell you, from a coaching perspective, that is not a good game most nights for me. And if that's what the official wants to see happen, that I wouldn't share that with the coach. A good game is one that is officiated consistently and everybody plays as hard as they can. For me, a good game is one where we're up by 35 in the second quarter and I get to play everybody and just about everybody goes home happy. My starters and their parents are a little upset because they're not going to have the stats that they would have had. But I'm just saying, there also has to be some bias acknowledged if that's what you think a good game is.
Coach, this is a great question that Robert Clemens asking us. As a head coach and as a mentor now to many others, how do you see us being able to get more officials? These young guys out here, we're getting old. And Rob, especially Mackett, is getting really, really slow. So the question is, what can we do to get into all your programs to say to these kids, you can make a really nice second income here, helping us out and getting into officiating. Plus, you lower our age in our association so much more. What can we do?
Yeah, I think we have to beat the drum harder. I think all of us, I think the FACA, FHSAA, the Officials Association, I think we just have to beat the drum harder. I've had a few players go on to be officials. We would talk about it, but we didn't talk about it often enough. And you know how you guys would come to our scrimmages, you have a crew out there, you do a training with our team, and then afterwards, and I would always talk to them after that about, hey man, that was my teachable moment about, hey, we can't have a game without these guys. And you need to consider being an official. You all got thick skins. Like you already can handle it. The crowd won't phase you. The fussy coach won't phase you. You're the right guy to do this. And if you love the sport, consider it, Problem is I was having that conversation a couple times a year. Probably need to have that conversation every week.
Well, thank you very much. Jeremy, I think that's it for us. We're ready here at 7 o'clock. I don't want to keep people past their dinner time and family time. So do you have anything else, or Mr. Lindman, Robbie, do you have anything?
There was a question. I don't think it was specifically to Coach Kramer, because I believe he answered it, or you did when you were speaking, that the coach would send all the film there in Collier County. So I just want to touch on a little bit. It differs from place to place throughout the state. Some counties and schools are better about sending their officials associations their film. Some schools are completely against that in some areas. Luckily, Rob and Shannon have it a little bit easier, where Collier County schools are sending that film. So Doug, it will depend on where you're at in the state, and if the schools do send that film to your association, you may want to check with your leadership there within your association.
Try to include it in your contracts. Put it in your next contract you have with them, that they will send those team film.
That's what I was going to say. Contract, or it needs to come out of committee. Get with the ADs and say, hey, let's get this through committee and get it to the board. Make it a requirement. We're required to give film for playoffs. I mean, that's a rule, man. So I think if we want better officiating, we got to give them the best tool we have, and that there's no disputing that is the best tool we have is the video of the game.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it. We took a couple good key point notes that I'm going to take back to our office, discuss with Robbie, that hopefully we can touch on and improve on from our end. This was an awesome session.
Y'all got Craig in the building. You don't need anybody else. Shoot, you should have had him sitting here.
Exactly.
Robbie, do you have anything else? Thank you, gentlemen, for doing this tonight. Appreciate it. I know it's an hour. We could be here probably all night discussing different things like this. But I know from our office, we respect everything that you men and women do out there, coaching and officiating. So we know you have families and things like that. So we never try to make things last longer than what they need to. So Robbie, if you have any final words.
Nope. Just want to say thank you, Coach Kramer. It's always great to hear from you. And also the GNOA folks. Y'all are phenomenal, and we appreciate y'all putting this together. Other than that, that's all I've got. And Tuesday evening, and I am a baseball guy, and the All-Star game's coming on. So
That's right.
So I'm excited about that. And let's all have a good night.
All right,
Thank you,
Rob,
everyone.
do
Thanks,
you want to
guys.
finish up, Rob?
No, I'm fine, Jeremy. I just want to thank the FHSA for giving this opportunity. I think these things are great when we put them statewide. And the only other thing I want to say is, listen, don't tell me we can't find officials. We can do it. Okay. If everybody in the state just goes out and gets just one person that shares a passion for the game, we can ensure that these games are being played on a Friday night. You just had a coach right there that was on, that took over a team that had 13 consecutive losing seasons and won a state championship 4 years later. So it can be done. Don't tell us we can't do it. Every one of us, the people that are on here are doing this for all the right reasons, because they have a passion about what they're doing and seeing kids play football on a Friday night. Let's all go out and recruit one new official in and get them in for this year.
Thank you, Rob. That's awesome. Good word.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
See you. Thanks, everybody.